Hey everybody, what's up? It's iCkEdMeL. Welcome back. A little bit unexpectedly. Um, so I was hit up about this press conference that's coming up, kind of out of nowhere, and it's with regards to the 6-year-old that shot a teacher. And last I checked, I believe she was in critical condition. Teresa, thank you so much for that. For hitting me up about that. Ooh, she's sending me really interesting stuff. Okay, great stuff. So we have a lot of things we can, well, a couple of interesting things we can show.
Said I'm shot.
Do we have time? Yeah, we have a little time. Let's see. Let's 13. This is gonna be cutting it close. Well, I don't know if I should read the article first. Let me do the article, but we'll watch this video after. 6-year-old shoots teacher in Virginia. Woman helps save teacher. Father of child speaks. I want to see that. I haven't seen this yet. I feel like I am going to assemble some sort of, I don't know, something for people to hit me up with breaking news. Somewhere I can get it faster. I don't know, because all my emails are clogged up. So luckily I happen to check my email. And they're supposedly saying this teacher may have been shot twice. So everybody, welcome back. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please hit the like button. We're waiting on the presser to start. About 10 minutes. I figure we can read a little bit of the article and like help people get familiarized with this story if they haven't done so already. Somebody says, where's the membership iPhone link? Apparently with your iPhone, you can't. I heard that with iPhone, you can't. You have to do it on computer for some reason. Like they block the membership thing. And I have a bunch of questions. How the hell? And they say this kid shot the teacher deliberately. Abby Zwerner, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, is a first grade teacher who was shot, police say, by 6-year-old student at Rich Neck Elementary in Newport News, Virginia. The British publication reported that it had identified the wounded teacher, known as Abby Zwerner, through parent Sebastian Gonzalez Hernandez, who told Daily Mail his own 6-year-old. Why? Hello? Okay, thank you. I was told that if you log into YouTube through Safari, I guess on iPhone, that you can actually join like that. I guess for anybody that has iPhone. So through parent Sebastian Gonzalez Hernandez, who told Daily Mail his own 6-year-old child was in the class when the shooting occurred on the after. Imagine you being a parent. I mean, Maddie's 6. Imagine your kid being in a class and you get some sort of notification, or these people call you and they tell you there was a shooting, and you're thinking some sort of adult, somebody ran in there. No, a kid walked into that class with a gun. The shooting occurred January 6th, later confirmed through sources that the injured teacher was Zwerner. Praying for my son's first grade teacher that got shot by a 6-year-old at Rich Neck Elementary today. She's the best teacher. I really hope she pulls through this, Gonzalez Hernandez wrote on Facebook. Dr. George Parker, the superintendent, confirmed in the news conference that the wounded teacher was a first grade teacher. Heavy has confirmed that Abby is one of 4 first grade teachers listed on the Rich Neck Elementary School website. Facebook posts indicate that 2 of the others are not the wounded teacher. Okay, thank you all for reaching out and checking on me. I'm physically okay, and so are my littles, wrote one of the first grade teachers, Anissa. So in this press conference, I guess the previous one, I didn't even know they had a previous one. The individual is a 6-year-old student. He is right now in police custody. Imagine that. He said in the news conference that Zwerner's condition was improving, but she suffered a life-threatening wound. According to Drew, the shooting was not an accident. On January 7th, Newport News police wrote in a statement in reference to the January 6th shooting. Rich Neck Elementary School Chief Steve Drew met with the victim and her family this morning. She has improved and is currently listed in stable condition. Okay. Chief Drew asked that you keep her in your thoughts and prayers. So supposedly, too, what I had heard is that when this teacher was shot, that she was telling the kids to like leave or run. So that's what it says here. The parent called Zwerner's actions heroic, saying she screamed at other students to run away. I just can't imagine the shock of just one of these little kids walking in there and just shooting you. Gonzalez told the Daily Mail that his son did not see the shooting. However, he heard the gunshot go off and turned around to see Ms. Zwerner on the floor. He told the website, "She's an amazing teacher, so dedicated. My son absolutely loves her, and we're devastated about what's happened. We're all thinking of her and hoping that she gets better soon." Gonzalez told the Daily Mail that she's a hero. She screamed at the kids to run away. After the student opened fire, he told the site, adding, "Even after she had been shot, she was thinking about the safety of her children." Incredible. Incredible, man. Like, so she went to James Madison University, described she has always loved nature and the calm, peaceful feeling it brings us. She graduated from, she studied at elementary education at James Madison University. She graduated from college in 2020. Her page says her Facebook page went to the West Point High School She went to the West Point High School, lives in Williamsburg, Virginia, and is from Ruckersville, Virginia. Okay. At JMU, Zwerner was in the Delta Gamma sorority. She wrote on Facebook, "I grew up outside of Charlottesville, so my family and I would always go on hikes at Shenandoah and play outdoors with a nice view of the mountains from our house. I've always loved nature and the calm and peaceful feeling it brings us. It's a great way to self-reflect, de-stress, and be content with whatever's going on in your life at the moment." On the previous thing, we're almost got about 5 minutes left. I missed the membership to a couple of super chats. So let me just get those real quick from the last stream. I think there we go. Planning Your Magical Chaos. Thank you for the 15-month membership. Appreciate that. I also appreciate your friendship. Happy Monday, Mel. I feel bad for anyone named Brian or Brian these days. For real. Thanks for always covering these stories. I love your friend. Love you too. Thank you so much for that. That's a long time. Yeah, 15 months. Hey. And I think all the other stuff I got. Infamous Truth Teller says Trezell and Jacqueline have court this month. Do they? I need to check that out. Shian, thank you so much for the super chat. Oh, by the way, we got to check about the suitcase thing. Sarah Boone, did they push that back again, or is it happening? Did it start already? Sarah Boone. When is that trial starting? That's the suitcase lady. The woman locked this guy up, tied him up, or zipped him in a suitcase and left him for dead. When is that trial happening? January 30th. Okay, so we got to set that on the calendar. January 30th. Okay. If you guys never heard of that story, we've been following it for a while because we watched the interrogation, which was nuts because she literally denied everything. And they're like, oh, well, they pull out her cell phone. They pull out some video of her recording this guy talking ish to this guy while he's like, let me out. And she's like talking crap to him and everything. He's just in there. You see him squirming and stuff. And I guess she forgot that she recorded it. I don't know if she deleted it and they recovered it. Crazy story. So we'll definitely be following that. Yeah, this story with this teacher was just shocking, man. This gun violence stuff just keeps happening over and over and over. And I guess this is like the next level of stuff. Like now we got kids. I mean, and then of course you got to look at the parents. What the hell is going on in that home? We got 3 minutes. In 2016, Zwerner wrote a Facebook post about volunteering at an elementary school after school program in Harrisonburg, Virginia, as an elementary teacher or elementary education major in college. Most of the children who attend are minorities in their schools with intellectual disabilities and low income, she wrote. While I and a few volunteers were outside making sure the children got inside the building from the bus, a young African-American third grade girl stopped in front of us and said, "I hate Trump because he hates people like me." Oh, damn. And continued to walk inside walk inside with her head down. I just don't know why a 3-year-old, she said the girl was 3-year-old. I never understood that. Oh, third grade. She's in third grade. How old are the third grades kids now? Let's see, third grade. I don't know. My daughter doesn't follow politics. I don't know why these kids are so into politics now. Third grade. It's because of what the parents are doing. I mean, I follow politics, but like I don't project or push any of that stuff onto my kid. Third grade school. I'm 8 or 9 years old, so maybe she's watching TV and stuff. 8 and 9. I mean, kids are watching TV younger. The post continued. I was speechless and felt my heart drop. Literally drop. This girl is so young to even feel racism and hate, let alone having feelings of racism and hate coming from our newly elected president. I cannot begin to fathom what her and her family are thinking and going through at home, their jobs, and her classes. Every person, let alone a child, should not be in a position to feel threatened and feel unwanted because they have heard and seen what Trump does. My heart breaks, not only for the helpless child, but for everyone else Trump has disregarded. I don't know, bro. I mean, we don't need to like sidestep into politics, but I always think it's so weird when like the kids are like, I don't know. What happened to the people of America? I was luckily and happily raised to know every person is equal, regardless of their cultural background, their religion, their sexuality, their color of skin, their education. Every person has a chance to be treated the same. The student used a handgun to shoot the teacher during a classroom altercation. So I wonder if we're going to get more details about that. Let's see. Oh, they're live here. All right, so they're getting set up. I'll use the Facebook feed directly from them, but if we have audio or visual issues, I'll switch to the other feed, backup feed. It's always Trump, man. It's always, that boy's still catching heat years later. But anyway, yeah, you got to look at the parents at this situation. I really wonder. I don't even think they've released the identity. Maybe they probably shouldn't. But you got to look at the parents at this. What the hell? What in the world is going on in that home? I think they should charge the parents. I don't trust it. Toll-free number. Hello? Let's see. I'm getting emails about the previous story that we covered.
All right. I'm Kelly King, Public Information Officer for the Newport News Police Department, and we are going to get started. The way we're going to work this, we are going to hear from 3 people first. Our Chief of Police, Steve Drew, our School Superintendent, Dr. George Parker, and our Mayor, Philip Jones. These are all common spellings, and they're in the media release. After that, we're going to take some questions. Prefer that you kind of hold your questions until after all 3 have spoken. Okay? So Chief Steve Drew.
Well, good evening.
I'll turn it down a little bit. I know, right?
Thank you all for joining us today. And I know there was some question about as we go forward and share some information today. I know there was some question about when we would deliver some remarks and comments. I think that's important to our community, right? But we wanted to make sure that we took some time and gathered some information. We had some good information to deliver and clear some things up. So my name is Steve Drew. I'm the Chief of Police here in Newport News, and I will tell you that this is an unprecedented situation that we're dealing with. A 6-year-old. It is unprecedented. So there are some nuances here. Last Friday was a hard day for our city, for all of us, and there were a lot of heroes. I will tell you that Saturday afternoon I was able to meet with family and I was humbled, but I was able to meet with Abigail Zwerner. Abigail is a 25-year-old teacher, and she is a trooper. She is a hero. I talked with her, so before I talk today, I'm going to go through the timeline, establish that a little bit for you, talk about our officer response, what happened while we were there, and where we're at in our investigation. But please remember that we are only 3 days into this, that there's a lot of things that still need to happen, and I'll talk about that as we go forward. But there are some questions that we will not be able to answer because of where we're at with this investigation. When I met with Abigail's family on Saturday, and they took me up to her room, she asked me, first question, do you know how my students are? She was worried about them. And then today, when I went back to share with her that we were going to hold this press conference today, she again asked me, do you know how my students are? And that touched me, her family and her mother. Abigail wanted me to tell you all, but primarily her students and her parents of her students, that she is in stable condition, and that she is thankful for the thoughts and prayers that have gone out to her, to people that have reached out, not only here locally, across our state and across our nation. She is very, very appreciative of the support that she's getting and continues to get. So I just want to establish with you a brief timeline. Last Friday at Rich Neck Elementary School on January the 6th, at 1:59, a call came in and advised that a teacher had been shot, and there was no other information that came forward. Officers were dispatched at 2:00 p.m. In personnel to Rich Neck Elementary. And anytime we have a situation where there is a shooter or they believe a possible active shooter, officers are going to come from all over. So there were officers from different areas there. At 2:04, 2 sheriff deputies arrived at the school and entered the classroom where this shooting took place. And we'll talk a little bit shortly here. There was not an active shooter going on throughout the school. Everything happened in one classroom. 2 sheriff deputies entered at 2:04, and about 8 to 10 seconds behind them, 2 officers entered. When they entered the room, they found a 6-year-old child that was being physically restrained by a school employee. The child became a little combative, actually struck the school employee that was restraining him. We'll talk a little bit shortly here. There was not an active shooter going on throughout the school. Everything happened in one classroom. 2 sheriff deputies entered at 2:04, and about 8 to 10 seconds behind them, 2 officers entered. When they entered the room, they found a 6-year-old child that was being physically restrained by a school employee. The child became a little combative, actually struck the school employee that was restraining him, and officers then took control of him and escorted him out of the building, placed him in a police car with an officer inside and outside that vehicle. Once that had occurred, there was a systematic evacuation of rooms and hallways for safety. So we still weren't sure exactly what all we had at that point. On the timeline, I want to go back and talk about the other response. As we said, at 2:04, deputies and officers responded. At 2:06, medics arrived at the school. At 2:07, the medics were cleared by officers to enter the building, that room was safe where we had someone had been injured. At 2:09, they made contact with Abigail, and at 2:11, she was transported to a local hospital where she's currently undergoing treatment. And again, if I didn't state earlier, she is still listed in stable condition, and I had a good conversation with her today. We talked a little bit about when the officers arrived. The young man was taken into custody and escorted out of the building. And officers responded then and began to put a plan together quickly to evacuate the hallways, the classrooms in a systematic order. But remember, we're dealing with elementary kids, right? And I will tell you, I was touched by the way that those officers interacted with those kids as they moved them from the hallway to the gymnasium. The faculty and staff there, and I'm not just talking about teachers. It was heroic, the way I saw them take care of those young people. Officers and faculty members took the students into the gymnasium. That's where they would stay until they were reunited with their family. The individuals that were in the classroom were taken to the library, where they were held there, kept there with detectives, a couple of teachers, and eventually some school counselors. When they arrived, we escorted them safely to that area as we continued to clear the building so that they could be, the professionals could be with our young people, with students. We talked about the detectives and counselors that were escorted there to make sure that we had professionals with the individuals that had been in that room. Once the building was safe, forensics entered the classroom and processed the crime scene. I want to share with you what we recovered there. One spent shell casing, a backpack, a cell phone, and a 9mm Taurus firearm was recovered. The firearm was recovered close to the student's desk where the shooting occurred. Mrs. Zwerner was providing class instruction. The 6-year-old child displayed a firearm, pointed it at her, and fired one round. There was no physical struggle or fight. She was providing instruction to her class. There was one round fired. Abigail took a defensive position, and what I'm sharing with you is because she has allowed me to share it. She took a defensive position where she raised her hand. The round went through her hand, exited the rear of her hand, and into her upper chest. And that's as far as I want to go with that. I'm not a physician and the complications there, but that was the injury as she leaned back and took that round.
Wow.
She suffered a gunshot wound, but she was still able to get all of her students out of that classroom. From the video surveillance we have of the hallway, you can see the students running out of that classroom across the hall into, and I'm estimating about 17 to 20 students out of that classroom across all into other classrooms. Mrs. Zwerner was the last person to leave that class. She made a right turn and started down the hallway, and then she stopped. And she turned around. She turned around to make sure that every one of those students was safe. She made her way down to the administration office, where we later find out that she was given first aid as dispatchers talked to individuals who had made phone calls, and they took care of her through communications until the paramedics got with her. Several faculty members were interviewed at the scene. Others, there will be follow-up interviews. There will be follow-up interviews with Abigail. The students that were there, we will work with child psychologists who are trained to interview children. We'll work with them and want to talk about what they saw in their accounts. Now, once I arrived, myself and other officers, I got a quick brief assessment of the situation, what we had, and I wanted to get out as quick as we could to our community and our parents, right, that we did not have an active situation, the individual was in custody, and that there was no longer threat. I tried to explain a little bit about how children were being moved to the gymnasium. We'll work with our school board members and faculty and staff there, our sheriff deputies, that came all together, and we had a systematic process of releasing a child to their parent. They were identified, and we got them back together. You can imagine there was some frustration by parents wanting their children back, and I can understand that. Myself and the mayor worked the line as parents lined up, calming them down, reassuring that their students were okay. But you saw tears and frustration, anxiety, and I appreciate that, sir. Because in those situations, what we have to do is try to keep people calm because they're just unsure of what they had. And as we reunited, as I saw school employees walking students and officers walking students back to their families, I saw tears and smiles on both sides. Almost in that moment of seeing our fire department, sheriff's department, police officers, school board members, school officials working together to reunite those children and loved ones, and the care that they took for those young people, it was amazing. Laughing, supporting, holding their hands, talking to them. I saw children in the gym that were making fun of officers and officers making fun of them, just bonding and trying to make that situation that we're dealing with the best that we could. They remembered how important those young people are in that time of, they may never forget. The parents of the 6-year-old child were contacted by the police department and asked them to meet us back at police headquarters. They did so, and at that point is where we interviewed the child and his mother. We determined that the firearm was in the residence where they lived. and the child had obtained that firearm, placed it in his backpack, and brought it to school. He was brought to school that day by his mother later that morning. The 6-year-old child brought to school, like we said there, and it was determined we wanted to know about that firearm. It's one of the things that we did in our press conference there. Was one of the questions I had. Where did that firearm come from? The firearm was legally purchased by the child's mother out of York County. Detectives, so after we had this information, like I said, this is unprecedented. We're dealing with a 6-year-old. Detectives talked with Human Services and Child Protective Services, our Commonwealth Attorney's Office. I've talked to Mr. Gwynn several times, as late as last night and this afternoon. The Community Service Board, which addresses mental and behavioral health. Due to the age of the child, we made these contacts and conversations to seek guidance on possible services, because none of us have a lot of information dealing with something like this. Based on this conversation, an emergency custody order was initiated by detectives, and the 6-year-old child was transported to a local hospital where he was evaluated. The CSB, Community Service Board, determined that a temporary detention order would be obtained from a magistrate, and the child is currently receiving treatment at a medical facility. Now, the department will continue to conduct this investigation, which will consist of follow-up interviews. We want to talk to the individuals that were in that classroom with help of a child psychologist. We want to meet with Human Services or Child Protective Services to see if there's any interaction or any cases that they have with the family or the child. And we also want to work with Dr. Parker and his staff, which have been extremely forthcoming with information of any issues they may have dealing with the child's behavior or any behavioral issues or concerns. I'd like to reiterate, and I said that night, I just want to reiterate that this shooting was not accidental. It was intentional. Now, I believe, and I told her today, I believe that Miss Zwerner, Abigail, that she saved lives on Friday. I cannot be more impressed with the faculty and staff of the school. I can't be more impressed with those children. The way they exited the hallways and went with instruction, the officers and deputies who talked to them, some holding their hands as they walked through, and the number of school employees that came in and we escorted to the gymnasium and even to the library to work with those young children. And I also want to thank all of our federal partners, state and local officials who've called and asked if there's any support that you need from the governor's office, all over the state, but primarily around our surrounding jurisdictions. Is there anything you need? And I believe that's because of the relationship that we have. So as we go forward, those are the conversations we'll be having as we continue to put this investigation together. There are a lot of things that we need to continue to do. We're only 3 days into this investigation. But I just wanted to share with you a little bit about our response, what we had, a little bit of the timeline, what was recovered, and what we have done at this point, and where we are as we go forward to have those conversations with our Commonwealth Attorney and the CSB board on the best avenue to go forward in this situation. I'll take some questions at the end. At the end, I want to make sure that Dr. Parker and our mayor speak. But before I step away, I just want to say that I am appreciative and thankful of the partnership and the relationship we have. And I want to thank you for your being there and just kind of all of us working together. I think that's what makes this city great. Horrible situation happened that we were able to come together. So I just wanted to say thank you.
And good afternoon. I will start my remarks by thanking quite a few organizations. I know our police department, sheriff's deputies, our city council members, and our school board, and that great staff at Rich Neck Elementary for their response and continued support of our students and our community moving forward from this event. When I arrived at Rich Neck Elementary School on Friday, I was coming from the southern portion of the city, and it took almost 30 minutes to get there. And by that time, a lot of operations were already in place. Our sheriff's office and with supporters, police had already sectioned off the area, and parents at that time, while very concerned, were cooperative. I'd like to thank the Rich Neck parents. They were very cooperative. They allowed us to put operations in place. They allowed Chief Drew and team to continue to search the building, and they allowed us to put a reunification plan in place in a very fairly short time, which allowed us to identify parents or guardians and make sure that they were reunified with their students. It took approximately 3 hours to complete that reunification process, which I thought, under the circumstances that we were dealing with, was very well done. So I'd like to thank all involved there. My remarks, we are very pleased to hear that our teacher, Abby, is improving. I look forward to seeing her soon. And we are continuing to support the staff of Rich Neck Elementary and the students. As of this day, all students who were in the classroom in that incident we've been offering mental health supports, and we've reached out to those families. We've continued to reach out to the Rich Neck Elementary staff to offer any mental health support as needed, and we have created a helpline that allows any parents or any community members who need support to contact that helpline, even if it's just a matter of talking to their child about what occurred. We also continue to offer that support to all of our staff in Newport News, teachers, families, and the community, because an incident like this does not traumatize one community, it traumatizes the entire city. And we're at a point in public education today where we have to continue to do our best to not only attract and retain the best teachers and the best staff that can serve our community, but also ensure that we have a safe learning environment for students to continue to grow and learn. And in many instances, we've had challenges here in Newport News, and we're not unlike many cities across the nation who have struggled with the impact of gun violence. However, we have to be very proactive moving forward, and to that, I say that our first approach this week has been to continue to follow up with the chief in his ongoing active investigation, but to conduct our compliance investigation as well. Whenever we have a serious incident of this nature, we want to unpack what transpired leading up to that incident, and so we can learn from it, not only from a procedural standpoint, but also from a safety standpoint. And we're in that process of doing that first. This is day 3, as Chief mentioned, and day 1 of our compliance investigation, and we will continue to meet with staff, collect statements, and also assess what transpired on Friday. Our next concern is the mental well-being of our faculty, our staff, not only the staff of Rich Neck Elementary, but our entire division. I've received many emails, some supportive, some concerned, some afraid, and it's understandable. Some angry, and I'm angry. But I know that we have to find a pathway to move forward. And I know that means that while we may be angry or in fear and don't understand all the details of what transpired, we'll get to that point where we can answer all of the questions, where we can clearly communicate what moving forward will look like. And I'd like to also thank those educators, principals, and students who are attending school today. I know it took great steps for some of them to wake up and go into a school building today. And that's the type of educators we have in Newport News. We're committed to our mission. We want to make sure that our students have a place to learn, and we want to continue to work on those areas of safety and other areas that we are going to focus on. So we have canceled classes at Rich Neck Elementary for the entire week, and we're going to use that week productively. We had very good meeting with the staff today, virtual, and I offered some questions that we want them to answer for us around school safety, what they would like to see take place in order for them to return to the school. What are some of the expectations for us in terms of supporting Rich Neck Elementary and their community? Once we gather that information from the staff, we will start building out a plan for our schools to begin school again. We do not have a timeline at this time for school operations to begin at Rich Neck Elementary. We want to work on the mental health of our staff and really build out a plan with their input that will allow us to proceed forward with their cooperation and the cooperation of our parents and families. We also have set out a town hall for the Rich Neck community so we can start hearing from parents on their concerns, and also begin to share out some things that we may do different moving forward. It's important to note that we have very detailed safety procedures in Newport News Public Schools. We've had 2 instances over the past, this being the second, over the past 17 months that involve gun violence in our schools. We learned a lot from the first incident, but one of the things we have to think, and it was a secondary school incident, it was a high school incident. In no way do I believe that we were fully prepared for a 6-year-old student to bring a gun to school, a weapon to school, and shoot his teacher. And just doing a little bit of research, since 1970, there have been 3 instances over 50 years where a 6-year-old student or less has discharged a weapon in a school. So there's a lot to learn here and a lot to unpack. And I would not stand here and say that we have all the answers. But we're up to the task of making sure that we do what's necessary to make sure that our elementary schools are safe, and that we can minimize any risk of future violence in our schools. So with that being said, we've talked about some of the instances that have occurred. I want to make sure that everyone understands that part of our preparedness is to train everyone in active shooter training. We call it the Civilian Response to Active Shooter Events course, or CRAES. I believe that every school division across the country should follow those procedures. What we saw were teachers who took immediate response to secure their students, to make sure that they separated themselves from a potential threat, and they responded accordingly. And I believe those types of things will happen through proper training. So with that being said, I really want to raise up our Rich Neck staff for their response, their active response, until the police could get there and really support us during this event. And we'll continue to unpack over the next few days what transpired on that day. How can we prevent it? How can we learn from this event moving forward? And then we'll share that with our communities and continue to seek their input and feedback. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Mayor Philip Jones, and thank you all for being here. The first thing that I want to say is that it's been a long 3 days for our city and our community. I just want to take a moment and acknowledge that. Second of all, I want to thank all of the first responders that were involved. And when you go and you actually look at that list, that's more than just the sheriff's office or the police department or the fire or the staff or the teachers or the principals. There are so many individuals that I want to say thank you. Thank you to the parents that showed up, that were orderly, that allowed us to evacuate the children in a safe manner, ensure that we had everyone accounted for. Thank you for the police that established the outer and the inner cordon. Thank you to my colleagues on council and on school board who worked the line for hours with me. I appreciate that and appreciate our partnership. So I just want to say thank you. My colleagues, both council and school board, have spent a lot of time at the hospital over the last few days. And when you think about Abby, when you think about what it means to be a hero, you're almost at a loss for words. During my time in the Marines, I've met heroes. I've met living legends, and I can tell you, Abby would be welcome in our company anytime. The fact that we live by a motto of Semper Fidelis, of always being faithful, and she was faithful as a teacher, and she was ensured that everyone is accounted for, and then she was the last one to leave. Okay, I do want to say that. As mayor, and my priority is to ensure that the safety of our children is number one. That is the most paramount thing, and we are always going to ensure that. The members of City Council and myself, I could not be prouder of our first responders, of Chief Drew. It really is. Watching you work has been an honor. This has shaken us. This has shaken me. But Newport News is a strong community, and together, we are going to work together to ensure that the well-being of our children remains a priority. And as mayor, that's what we're going to do. Thank you.
Okay, before we take questions, I just want to clarify that I know there was some frustration about not releasing Ms. Zwerner's name initially, but Chief did get permission from her this morning to do that. So, okay, any question?
Have the parents told you anything about whether the child had problems previously in school, disciplinary issues, anything like that that would precipitate this?
So I don't know exactly verbatim. I know that there are faculty members that we want to talk to, and that there are those children that were in the room and their parents. Those are some follow-up interviews we want to have, but we want to make sure that we have those as they fall into, as we recover evidence and process the information that we have coming in. So I don't want to get into comments that they have made. I still remember, and I just, again, caution, I want to be as open and transparent as I can. I think we have a good relationship that way, but I also don't want to jeopardize any investigation that moves forward, and there's some different moving pieces and components. So I wouldn't want to get into actual statements that were given by anyone who might have some of that information. Is that fair? Those are two great questions. You know, as we'll work with our professionals, we'll get some information back about some treatment that is being going on right now, an evaluation, and to hear some of those things. As far as charges against family members, parents, there's been a lot of questions. I've seen a lot of posts in the media, and I am certainly not as well versed as others in the social media side, but I've seen a lot of conversation about, are the parents going to be, so talking with our Commonwealth Attorney, we have a great relationship and the utmost respect. I met with him or talked with him. I was with him last night. We talked today. That once the information, right, once all the interviews have been conducted, as the gentleman behind you had just asked about, if the parents said anything, once all that stuff is obtained, we know what we know from Human Services or Child Protective Services, what information the schools have, the other interviews that we still need. I'd like the detectives want to go back and have some more conversation with Abigail. We will present that and sit down with the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. They will review that, and a great comment he made to me today was where the facts are and what the law supports will determine if there will be any charges. But I would be wrong to make that statement now. It'll be where the investigation leads. They're still trying to put all of that together. Sir.
Chief, you said you believe this was an intentional act, and you believe the teacher here saved lives in that classroom. Do you have reason to believe that this 6-year-old was targeting multiple people in that classroom?
Everything we have at this point that it was intentional. I do believe that. I believe that the actions were at or towards the teacher, but you never know how someone's going to want to react with a firearm, with students, and we're talking about a 6-year-old child. I don't know what all was going through that individual, that child's mind. But what I do know is that she made sure that every one of those kids were out of that room, and she was the last one to leave, and she took upon herself in that situation, after suffering a gunshot wound, to make sure that her students, and she made sure that I understood that, those are her students, that they were safe. So I believe she did save lives, because I don't know what else might have happened if those kids would have stayed in that room. Sir.
Superintendent, could you talk about what the plan is to address the students when they come back to school?
Absolutely. Our first steps right now is to offer mental health support and then to provide the community with some transparency as far as what occurred and solicit their input in how we will proceed forward. Once those plans are developed, that will involve supports for students. We know that we have a crisis response team that started their work on Friday evening, and they will be there for as long as they're needed once school begins for the students and faculty of Rich Neck Elementary School. So right now, our goal right now is to build out a plan for us to transition back to operations. But it will involve the input of parents, the input of staff, supports for our students as they transition back. And that's as far as I have right now, because I cannot communicate a plan right now without their input.
Did we interpret that correctly? The student just pulled out the gun from the backpack out of nowhere unprompted? There was no verbal argument?
So there was no physical struggle. There was no fight. The firearm was displayed from his person, not from his backpack.
Oh.
And he pointed that firearm and fired one round.
But you were in altercation though last week. Is that still a fair word to use today?
So is it, for me, that when altercation was an interaction, maybe that would have been a better word, but I can tell you what I know today, and we got to remember, we were just hours, right? What we know today is that she was providing instruction, he displayed a firearm, he pointed it, and he fired one round.
So Chief, the other day, look, so there was no actual.
Can you repeat the question? I can't hear the question.
Yeah, we can't hear the question.
Pulls out the gun and shoots her.
You're asking me, is that what happened? Did he display a firearm and shoot her?
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. And he did not, how did he have the gun outside of his, I mean, he was just holding it and firing?
So you got to remember, his question was, if you didn't hear that he's asking how was he holding the firearm. There's a lot of follow-up interviews that we need to do. We need to work with child psychologists, professionals, as we talk to the individuals inside that room. There's some more interviews we want to do with Abigail to determine that. But it didn't come out of the backpack. He had that firearm on his
Wow.
person.
Damn.
The family had any interaction with law enforcement?
I don't. His question was, can you tell us if the family had any interaction with law enforcement? I can tell you that all of those things are being reviewed. But I would just go back to say that the firearm was purchased legally by the
what?
child's mother, and that she had the right to do that.
Yeah, still.
Disciplinary actions on record with the child?
So those things, again, we will be obtaining. His question was, are any disciplinary actions on file with the child? Those things we'll be
Yeah.
looking at. I couldn't even share
Charge the kid
with you
too.
that because it is a
I'm just
child.
kidding, I don't know.
We'll be working with our Child Protective Services and our school system. It will be put in the report and then submitted. I want to make sure that the Commonwealth Attorney and all that need to have their eyes on that investigation have that information. She asked about how many students were in the classroom. I don't want to speak for Dr. Parker, but from what I saw and from my conversation with Abigail, I believe it was about 17 to 20, 16 to 20 students.
Do you know who took the gun away?
There needs to be some more follow-up interviews before I would answer that question. Okay, is that fair? His question was, can you tell us who took the firearm away from the child? I can tell you that it fired one time. There was a school employee who entered that room as deputies and officers entered that was restraining that child. The firearm was on the floor, and that's where it remained. But there's some more interviews that we need to go through before we go down that.
You said that the mother purchased the gun legally, but how was it secured that the 6-year-old could get it? Was it secured in the home or left unsecured?
That's a great question. We've got we're trying to piece that together. Her question was how the firearm was secured in the home. That is a key element for us to determine. Right now we have some statements, but we want to shore those up. So I'm not going to go into much further than that. What I can tell you is the child did take the firearm from the house. He put it in a backpack and took it to school that day. But I don't want to go at this point about how that firearm was secured, where it was secured at, and how the child may or may not have known where it was at.
Also, how does a 6-year-old have the strength and dexterity and know-how to fire a gun?
You know, that is a great question, and I wish that we never had to have it asked. How does a 6-year-old know how to use a firearm?
Because they showed him, the parents.
I don't know that I could give you an adequate answer. I know that I have seen some video games out there that
Oh,
depict it
please,
pretty
put this
clearly.
video game shit.
Whether it's some think it might be a toy at one point. I don't know how to answer that. It's unprecedented. I don't know how to answer that question.
Possible prior experience firing one?
I don't know how to answer that question fairly.
Is this a general education classroom, and were there any other staff members?
I'm not exactly sure what type of class it was, or I mean, Dr. Parker, if you want to touch base on that.
Question was whether it was a general education classroom and whether any other staff members, to my knowledge, it is a general education classroom, and to my knowledge, there were no other staff members at that time present in the classroom. But we're investigating our chronology of what occurred, and so we're going to confirm that.
We've received many emails from parents, not of just that school, but other schools in Newport News, asking about the safety of their kids. They're not sending their kids to school from other schools. What's your message to the parents? Are your schools safe, and what steps are you going to make after this to make sure they are safe?
The question is, what are we doing to keep our schools safe? We have protocols in place for school safety, and we also provide those our staff and/or administration training in school safety procedures. Again, this is an isolated incident that is unprecedented over a 50-year period, 3 instances over 50 years. While every situation creates alarm, and the pain and anguish and the whole process of emotions that have to go through with that, we continue to assess our security procedures and work on our procedures with our police department and make modifications if there's something that's missing. Now, what's clearly missing in this case, and we've addressed metal detection, random searching, and all kinds of other things at the secondary level due to an incident that occurred a year ago. I'll be honest, who would be prepared for a 6-year-old to bring a loaded weapon onto school or a weapon onto school and shoot their teacher? So with that being said, the next step would be to look solely at that deterrent. At the elementary level, we've primarily focused on an adult or a person entering a building as an active shooter. And we've made plenty of safety adjustments, hardening our buildings, making sure we have safety protocols for entry points, making sure that we have protocols in the building, such as training for our staff for active shooters. We've done this at both elementary, middle, and high. But we rely quite a bit on metal detection as part of our deterrence at the secondary level. And I believe, and I hate to be at this point where I'm considering this, but we have to start relying on those types of deterrents at the elementary level as well. So our coming out of this our debrief of this situation, it may warrant us to reconsider all metal detectors at all of our buildings, and that may be, at least that's one extra layer of support. Now, I will say, with metal detection and other forms of security, no single method of safety measure is going to completely ensure that no incident will occur in the future. I would never make that guarantee. It requires the support of our community to make sure guns are not in the hands of youth. It requires us to do the training necessary and to have all of the layers of our safety plan in place: video surveillance, controlled entry and access points, make metal detection and searching, hot tip lines where kids or parents may contact us. We avoid a lot of situations with that. Social media monitoring. There are a lot of layers of safety that we are already in place. And this is an unfortunate incident, but I would dare say that we do have a lot of effective protocols in place to maintain the safety in our schools today. This incident right here will cause us to rethink how we handle our youngest children coming into our division. And I mentioned being angry earlier because I know my board members know how I feel about making our schools look anything like a prison or prison-like procedures in our schools.
Turn it to prison.
I want our schools to be great places to educate children. But I also understand, and I agree with the sentiment of my staff and parents and families, that if we can't maintain safety or at least get to the point where we can have an effective and safe school day, kids won't learn anyway. So that's where we are right now as a staff and as a community. I will continue to work with my school board, city, and mayor to look at our procedures. And I don't believe anything would have avoided this circumstance right here unless kids walk through a metal detector. So that's something that we just have to consider moving forward. And the question is whether we have cameras in the classroom. I would, from that standpoint, I don't like to mention where our cameras are in our buildings, just for the needed security measures that we have in place.
Yes,
we have cameras, complete coverage in the interior where we're able to monitor student behavior and staff behavior. But places like restrooms, interior classrooms, there are some, do not necessarily monitor those on a random basis. We have monitoring systems in place to record. So we currently do not put cameras in every classroom in our schools.
So this incident is not on video?
That's something I'll have to go back and assess. I know there was some recording taking place and there was firsthand account. But in this particular case, I would have to go back and review the video evidence to see what we have recorded in our school division. And I have not at this time. This is day one. I have not reviewed video evidence at this particular point. Chief Drew has been leading the investigation from a criminal standpoint. my investigation will be completely different. It's from a compliance-related standpoint.
Sorry. Superintendent, you had said this is the second incident of gun violence in the Newport News school. Do you know how many other incidents this year occurred in which a child brought either a gun or ammunition or some other deadly weapon to a school that didn't result in violence but might have been picked up by teachers? So can you say that that didn't happen, or what do you know about that?
And I'll ask, are you referring to Newport News Public Schools or other school divisions? Okay, I can't give you a number of any safety measures. We do safety searches, and if a student is found with a weapon, it is documented, recorded as such. But at this point, I can't give you a number of any confiscations or any weapons violations at this particular point.
Chief,
How
how many
many
bullets
are
are in
there
that
of
firearm?
parents reporting that the student had previously threatened this teacher in his classroom and perhaps even brought bullets into the classroom? Is that
At
I
this
heard
point,
about
I'm not
that.
at liberty to speak to that because we're still investigating.
No, speak on it.
The instance that occurred.
Supposedly there was issues before a kid bought bullets.
For in the firearm, and do you believe the student would have turned the gun on other students?
I don't know what was going through that child's mind. He's 6 years old. I don't know. I don't want to release how many rounds were in the firearm. I can tell you there were more than one, but I don't want to go into that. I will tell you there was a 9mm Taurus firearm, a handgun that was recovered.
Chief, you had said he's in the hospital. You had said he's in the hospital right now.
All I'm going to say, the question is asking where the child is at.
Well, what's the next step for him?
So the next step will be that because of his age, he has 96 hours to go in front of a judge, and they will determine continual treatment or the next steps. But that will be handled by several individuals around that age group that specialize in dealing with a child, again, a 6-year-old. So that has to wait to be determined, but he has 96 hours before that child will go in front of a judge to determine what are the next steps.
What, does that mean you're bringing up charges against him?
That means that a judge will determine if we continue with that temporary detention order, if treatment and evaluation continue, or what the next steps may be. So we just have to wait until that. I want to make sure, again, I am not going to push and press this to be we're going to make sure that there's a lot of questions. You all have asked a lot of questions. I promise you, multiply that by 3, and that's the questions that we have. But we are not going to rush through it. Did you have a question, sir?
Any more details on the actions of the staff member who apparently entered the room?
So his question was, do I want to add any more information? All I can say is this, and then I'm going to step aside, is that there is video recording from the hallway that we have observed. That's how we know the children ran out of the classroom and across the hall. When the gunshot went off, there was a school official, I am not going to release her name or even her position, that entered that classroom and restrained that young man, that child, I should say child, I'm not saying young, that child, the 6-year-old child, until sheriff deputies entered and officers entered and held him. I believe that the child struck her once or twice.
What?
And then she released him.
I would have
He was
knocked
taken
it up
into
and
police
shit.
custody and escorted out of the building safely.
Especially after you shot him, I would have knocked that kid up and like
Okay, I think that
straight
we're
in his
going to
ass.
wrap up now. Thank you very much. If there are more questions or if there's any further information we can release on the criminals side of the investigation, we will do that through Twitter. So be sure and follow our page there. So thank you all for coming.
Wow, man, this is crazy, insane. What to even say about this, bro? And so we got to play. There's an interview from, I think, one of the parents. We got to watch that. The whole thing where supposedly one reporter had asked about, like, oh, supposedly there was an incident that like a kid had brought bullets to class. I was pretty sure I read an article about that. So we need to find that article, because if that's true, if it's true, why didn't y'all do anything? You know, like, if that's really the case. And I feel that the mother should be charged, because when you have a gun, it's your responsibility. So it should be charged for something, at least negligence or something else. When you have a gun, you're responsible for properly storing it. That's like basic 101 shit. The fuck? Yeah, mom should be charged. Hell yeah. At that age, and what was going on in the house? They need to investigate what is going on in that household. And where is the father? No father, right? No father, no dad. Mason. Let's see what this lady has to say here. I mean, we do need, we do need more information, but I'm not going to sit here and, oh yeah, mom's not responsible. Hell no. Crazy? I mean, because then we're just going to start letting all kinds of shit slide. The heck?
She said, I'm shot, call 911. We only thought it was somewhere on her hand, maybe. But after looking further, she passed out on the floor.
And that's true. Crime True Grime says, ask yourself why a 6-year-old is so angry. Yeah, I wonder what is going on in that household, man. And how could it occur to a child to come with a gun?
And then after looking further, we noticed that there was another gunshot wound.
LaWanda Rusk, a grandparent of 2 boys who attends Rich Neck, came to the school early to pick up her first grader and kindergartner. But little did she know, just moments later, a 6-year-old would gun down a teacher.
Myself and the receptionist stayed pretty much mostly to her side because we know the administrators had to do what they needed to do to make sure all of the children were safe.
Did you help give Abby CPR?
I didn't do CPR, but yes, I did help put pressure on her wounds. Yes, I was there.
This all happening in the school office before first responders were able to get to Zwerner.
I didn't know what to do. I'm not a med. I didn't know what to do, but I just instinct.
Worrying not only for Zwerner, but for her 2 boys' safety.
He was in the classroom beside her, beside the classroom where the gunshot was, and he heard the gunshot. They heard the gunshot.
Some kids were crying.
Did Friday's shooting lead you to today's Stop the Violence rally?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Concerned residents, community activists, and city leaders voiced concerns at the 2nd annual Stop the Violence rally as the school shooting pains the community. Chief Drew even showing support to the youngest in our community.
We are trying to focus this on a mental issue more than just the violence part of it.
Leaving Russ to enhance her mental health conversations with her boys.
They don't realize the height of the situation. However, I'm still talking to them about what happened on Friday. And I will continue to talk to them until they really get a full understanding of the magnitude of how things went.
It's a parent's issue too.
How a 6-year-old can obtain a weapon, a firearm, let alone have the wherewithal to use it.
Joy McManus is a mother and teacher who is still wrapping her head around this tragic situation.
This one in particular just feels so close to home and feels so hard to understand that we're now getting to the fact that our youngest of our students are involved with gun violence.
Friday, the unimaginable happened at Rich Neck Elementary School, where, according to police, a 6-year-old student shot. Logical impacts the shooting may have on students and staff.
School-age children, especially so young, they process trauma differently than adults. They are grieving in a sense because the normalcy of their experiences has now changed.
Is a 6-year-old even able to comprehend the severe?
I remember I used to go to John Adams High School in New York, and I remember that when I went to that high school, that day over there, they had metal detectors, but also had x-ray machines. And so you had to put your book bag in the metal. And that school was like, kind of like just trouble everywhere you go in that school. But yeah, you had to put your backpack in the sliding thing, the x-ray machine, and you walk through a metal detector.
Severity of this shooting.
I would say, and this is without meeting the child, I would have a very hard time as a professional thinking and that this child could truly process the gravity of their actions.
Yet Williams says the shooting involving a 6-year-old is a case like no other, leading her to recommend parents to encourage their children to share their feelings.
It wouldn't surprise me that it would take months or years for the impact of this trauma to truly settle in for those individuals.
She also says parents should have a conversation at home about gun violence to help them process what they experienced.
Yes, because we make assumptions that our children are innocent and they don't know. And if we have conversations, we will be surprised at what they pick up.
TSA at the school.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. This past weekend has been a dark day for our city. It's a very raw experience, but I'm extremely proud of all my first responders, the teachers, the staff, the community coming together. We are going to pull together. Honestly, it's a very difficult thing to process. The fact that we...
Before I start off, I just want to say prayers and healing to Miss Abby and the child, Rich Neck Elementary School, the city, and our community. The second thing is I wasn't alerted about what happened at the school. Half of the parents was not alerted about what happened in the school. We found out on the news. My wife called me and told me that there's a shooting, an active shooter at the school. And when we found out there was an active shooter, I got up. There was police helicopters everywhere outside. Traffic was jammed up. So the mission to get to the school somewhat was impossible until we got there. And then it was a 2-mile radius cordon off of parked cars and people running, trying to actually get to the scene. Once we got to the scene at Hope Church, that's where the cops met us and they were trying to defuse the situation. Because that's when we, in the crowd, and the cops were telling us that there was a shooter that was a child and a teacher that was shot. That's how we found out. And the worst part about this is that the school usually sends out a text message as well as the city.
That's what I'm saying. Like, because with my daughter's school, like they give, when there's notifications or something going on, I usually get like a call. And that call, or the toll-free number, that was actually the school reminding me of something that's coming up. And they call both of my phones. And they even have texting capabilities. I mean, I know it's kind of crazy at the moment, I guess, when, obviously when somebody's shot, but they have so much staff there, you would think that's something, one of the first things, secure the situation, call police. You got multiple people, you got to delegate, you got to notify the parents.
I have 3 text messages from the cities. They have a code for every city that sends out the messages. There was one that was sent out. It was sent out on... Go ahead, I'm listening. On the 1st, the 7th, and the 8th. The incident, it happens because this is how I feel. And as a prior military veteran, I kind of understand this because I had to do this with my soldiers. It's called grouping. And when we miss the group and we miss the target, we missed what we're supposed to do. Number one, the call to the parents. We missed that grouping. So half of these parents are confused, and when we get there, we're already riled up because we don't understand. Number two, the security measures. They said that they don't have metal detectors in the front of the school. I walk my son to school and pick him up every single day. There's only one person outside, but they also have road guards and stuff like that to get the kids into school. There are no metal detectors into that school. There's only one metal detector, and that's inside of the library. We don't have a precise guideline of clear backpacks that could possibly have helped this, as well as security with wands to get each child through properly. In an article yesterday, it was released, and they said that they have security measures inside of the facility, and kids are looked at every day in their backpack sporadically. My child's backpack is looked at every single morning by his teacher in his folder, Miss MacArthur, in the 2nd grade. Every single morning. How did we miss this? And again, prior raised concerns. We as parents raised these concerns before. We've talked to the principal. We talked to the guidance counselor. We went to town hall meetings. We spoke on Zooms. What else are we supposed to do? Yes, can you give me 1 second before we even say that? I'm not blaming the school. I'm blaming the city for not implementing the measures to help these schools after 3 years of school shootings. Go ahead.
So when it happened, the teacher heard it from the 1st grade, and we all went to the room. And then when we got there, we all stayed quiet. 2 people were crying. I will help them. And when the cops came, we were marching to the gym, and we were all safe. And they were programming it was safe enough.
he just said that he was scared and he's glad that we got there on time, and it was just a scary situation. His children were shaken up. Parents was even more shaken up. But like I said, Rich Neck Elementary School is not to blame here. Their safety measures are implemented. They got these kids in a safe zone. I'm very glad that that's what happened. And I just wanted the city to speak up and try to get more implements so this doesn't happen again.
News that can clear and respond for a subject with a gun at Rich Neck Elementary School acknowledged.
Tonight in Newport News, Virginia, a 6-year-old under arrest.
Okay, so I wanted to pull up one more thing. This article here. I might have already had it on. Just a one reference that supposedly there was some prior incident. I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently. Okay. A grandmother of one of the students told Daily Mail that a student brought shiny gold bullets to school last week, but it's unclear if it was the same child who was taken into custody. So, I mean, that's the thing that I had read previously. Thank you, Mo, for sending me that. Apparently, I already had the article up, but thank you for that. So, like, I mean, I don't know if things like this are happening. The grandmother who asked not to be named said the child had allegedly brought bullets to school last week and said he would bring his gun. A parent told the school they did nothing. Now look, she wrote on Facebook. She said the parents outside stated that their child told them a kid brought a golden shiny bullets to school and was thinking about bringing his gun. The student told the parent who informed the school. And the school just yesterday got back to the parent saying the parent of the kid said it was a Nerf bullet, and that the parent said Nerf bullets aren't shiny gold. She was not positive the child who brought the bullets is the same child allegedly involved in the shooting. So that's that situation. And honestly, if that situation is true, I just feel like they wouldn't admit it. I feel like because it would look even worse now with this situation that happened. Like if that really did happen, I just don't feel the school would admit it. It's my opinion. I think they're going to try to protect themselves from any kind of liability, lawsuit, whatever. So they're going to, if that really happened, they're just going to deny that shit. The school, however, does have the capability of metal detecting students. Superintendent George Parker said at the press conference they do not perform the test on every student every day, but said every school in the district has the capability to do so. When we have received a threat or issue, we do random metal detection on those days. It is unclear if the school had enhanced testing after the bullet claim the week prior. So, I don't know, bro. A mess. So we'll be following. I'm going to keep following the other story, too. This one is kind of, I guess, I don't know what else, unless the parents come out. I think they should charge the mother. I don't know what the exact situation is, but clearly this gun couldn't have been stored properly. And I just feel like that kid's going to need, I'm sure, evaluation and whatever else what's going on, because the childhood is whatever he's been dealing while growing up needs to be looked at as well. And we just can't keep letting shit slide. People need to be charged and held accountable. Like, there's enough of this, like, and if you want to put her in therapy while she's locked up. You know what I'm saying? But like, how many people are going to keep dying and blah, 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 like all this shit. Okay, amazing. I got something too. All right. And so that's it for now. I'm going to move you guys because I'm doing a stream later as well. Hopefully it's enough time to give myself, because I got to do something. Let me see what we got. I don't have notifications yet. I almost want to push that stream to 7 just to give myself enough time. I'm going to push it for 7 because I want to hit the gym. I got to take baby girl somewhere, and then I want to hit the gym. So I'm going to do it for 7, push it back a little bit. There's a Nancy Grace podcast. I'm going to see whatever else I can come up with Brian Kohlberger so we can talk about it. I pushed it back 30 minutes just to give myself enough time. I'm going to move you guys over there. Please hit like, subscribe, turn on the bell notifications. Really appreciate it. We're at 173,000. The super chats. Jennifer Cochran says, loving this mayor. Thank you. And thank you for the 11-month membership. Says mayor looks so young. Janet, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. Lunice, thank you for the membership. Lilith, thank you for subscribing on Twitch. Philly Sports, thank you for the super chat. Lala Lakawi Crafter, thank you for the membership. Danielle, thanks for the membership. And we're good. Spring Bunnies, thank you. Thank you so much. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. All right, you'll be waiting. Thank you so much, man. We'll be there on the next stream. Bye. Adios. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Yeah, you got to lock up your guns, man. Come on. There's even things I've heard